The ending of Outlander Season 8 episode May 9th have just revealed the heartbreaking fate that the show has been building towards from the very beginning. Just when it felt like Jaime and Claire had finally found peace again, the shadow of King's Mountain started closing in around them. And by the end of the episode, it honestly felt like destiny itself was preparing to tear everything apart. From Lord John finally getting revenge, to William discovering who he truly is, to Claire realizing that history may never be changed no matter how hard she tries, this episode was filled with emotion, suspense, and moments that genuinely felt like the beginning of the end. And after watching this episode, I honestly think Outlander may be setting up one of the most emotional finales that the series has ever delivered. So let's break down everything that happened in Outlander Season 8 Episode 9, discuss the ending, and talk about what it could mean for the final chapter of the story. The episode opened in such a tense and unsettling way, because we were immediately thrown back into the aftermath of Lord John being kidnapped. After waiting through that extra break between episodes, there was this huge feeling of uncertainty surrounding his fate, and the show really leaned into that fear during the opening moments. Seeing Lord John trapped, exhausted, and mentally broken after weeks of imprisonment immediately created this dark atmosphere around the episode. The point of view shots and the disoriented way the scenes were filmed made us feel just as trapped as he was, and honestly, for a moment, it genuinely felt like the show was preparing to kill him off before the finale. But what made this storyline so interesting wasn't just the danger that he was in. It was the reason why he had been captured in the first place. Richardson's plan revealed something much bigger happening behind the scenes. With Lord John's brother preparing to speak in Parliament, and potentially push toward ending British support for the war, Richardson believed that allowing the colonies to break away from Britain would eventually lead to decades of suffering and slavery continuing in America. And that's where the episode became far more layered than just a rescue mission. Because suddenly, the show was asking a very complicated question. What happens when somebody tries to change history for what they believe is the greater good? Richardson believed that changing the outcome of history could save millions of people from pain in the future. But at the same time, Outlander has always shown us that history is incredibly difficult to alter, no matter how much the characters try to fight against it. What made the entire Lord John storyline even more emotional was the way William became central to it. Over the course of this season, William has been struggling with his identity more than ever before. Ever since discovering the truth about Jaime being his biological father, it feels like he has completely lost his sense of self. He's been caught between two worlds. One part of him belongs to the Grey family, while the other part belongs to the Frasers. And throughout the season, he has seemed angry, confused, and isolated because of it. But this episode finally felt like the moment where he started understanding that identity is far more complicated than blood alone. The moment where William finally found Lord John and embraced him after everything they had been through was honestly one of the strongest emotional scenes of the entire season. Because despite all of the anger and conflict between them recently, that scene reminded us that Lord John truly is William's father in every way that matters. He raised him, protected him, guided him, and even though William now knows the truth about Jaime, that doesn't erase the love and bond that he shares with Lord John. The emotion in that reunion scene felt incredibly genuine, and the music underneath it made it hit even harder. You could feel the relief, the guilt, and the love all crashing together at once. At the same time, Jaime's role in rescuing Lord John added another emotional layer that the show has been building toward for a long time. Ever since the conflict between them began, there has been this sadness hanging over their friendship. These are two men who have sacrificed so much for each other over the years, and yet their relationship became damaged by anger, jealousy, and misunderstanding. But when Jaime risked everything to save him, it reminded us that deep down, that friendship never truly disappeared. Jaime still cared about Lord John far more than he wanted to admit. And honestly, the scene where they finally made peace may have been one of the most emotional moments in the episode. What made it so powerful was the fact that neither of them really said exactly what they were feeling outright. Jaime claimed that he was forgiving Lord John, but in reality, the apology was really about the years of bitterness and resentment that had built between them. And when Claire encouraged Jaime to finally speak honestly, it allowed the walls between them to finally come down. Jaime acknowledging everything that Lord John had done for him, and for William over the years felt like such an important moment, because it brought their relationship full circle again. After all of the pain and conflict, they were finally able to stand beside each other as friends once more. And considering the fact that the Battle of Kings Mountain is now approaching, it honestly felt like the show was intentionally giving these characters closure before something devastating happens in the finale. But perhaps the most shocking part of the entire episode came through Claire's storyline and the revelation surrounding Richardson being a time traveler himself. That twist completely changed the conversation surrounding his motivations, because suddenly he wasn't just acting out of political ambition or cruelty. He genuinely believed that changing the outcome of the war could prevent decades of suffering in the future. And in some ways, his reasoning was understandable. If the British had maintained control over the colonies, slavery may have been abolished much earlier across America. The Civil War may never have happened. Millions of lives could potentially have been different. But the episode also reinforced the terrifying idea that history may always correct itself no matter what anyone does. Claire has spent years trying to prevent tragedy, warn people about the future, and save the people she loves from death. Yet time and time again, history continues moving toward the same destination. And that realization felt heavier than ever in this episode, because now the threat of Jaime dying at Kings Mountain feels closer than it ever has before. Claire knows what history says is supposed to happen there. She knows the danger waiting ahead. And despite everything she has learned over the years, there's still this horrible feeling that she may not be able to stop it. By the time the episode ended with Jaime preparing to leave for battle, there was this overwhelming sense of dread hanging over everything. It no longer felt like the characters were moving toward hope. It felt like they were marching toward fate itself. The storyline surrounding Claire in this episode honestly felt like the emotional core of everything, because for the first time in a long time, it truly felt like she was carrying the weight of history on her shoulders again. Throughout parts of this final season, Claire has strangely felt disconnected from the larger story, almost like she was standing on the sidelines while everything unfolded around her. But episode 9 finally brought her back into the center of the narrative in a way that reminded everyone why she has always been the heart of Outlander. The scenes involving her conversations about time travel, destiny, and history were some of the strongest dialogue moments that we've had all season, because they force Claire to confront a terrifying truth that she's been trying to deny for years. No matter how much knowledge she has about the future, she may never truly be able to change it. And after everything that she has experienced since traveling through the stones, that realization feels absolutely devastating for her. Because at the center of all of it is Jaime. Every decision Claire has made has ultimately been about saving him, protecting him, and preserving the life that they built together. But now, with the Battle of Kings Mountain approaching closer and closer, it feels like she's beginning to fear that destiny is finally catching up to them. What made this episode so emotional was the quiet sense of inevitability surrounding Jaime's storyline. The show didn't need huge speeches or dramatic moments to make us understand what he was feeling. Instead, it was written into the smaller scenes, the lingering looks, and the conversations that carried this heavy emotional weight underneath them. Jaime knows the danger waiting ahead. Claire knows it too. And the audience knows it. That's what made every interaction feel so heartbreaking, because there was this constant feeling that these characters were trying to hold on to moments before they slipped away forever. When Brianna begged Jaime not to go to Kings Mountain, it genuinely felt like a daughter pleading with her father to choose life over honor. And for a brief second, you almost wanted to believe that maybe he would listen. Maybe after everything that he has survived over the years, this would finally be the moment where he walked away from war and chose peace instead. But that simply isn't who Jaime Fraser is. His entire story has always been built around sacrifice, loyalty, and duty. Even when he knows the cost, he still moves toward danger if it means protecting the people he loves. And that's exactly why this storyline feels so tragic. Jaime going to battle isn't about glory or revenge. It's about protecting his family, his home, and the future that they built together. In his mind, fighting is the only way to keep them safe, even if it costs him his own life. The scene where Benjamin Cleveland arrived at the ridge carried such a dark sense of finality, because the second he appeared, it felt like fate itself had finally arrived for Jaime. Cleveland calling in the favor that Jaime owed him immediately made it clear that there was no escaping what was coming next. The war was no longer distant. It was now standing directly at their doorstep. And the way the episode framed Jaime during those final moments really made him feel like a man preparing for the end of his journey. There was almost this calmness about him, like deep down he had already accepted what might happen at King's Mountain. And honestly, that made everything even more emotional because Claire was still desperately trying to hold on to hope while Jaime seemed prepared to face whatever destiny had planned for him. Their relationship in this episode felt incredibly painful to watch, because you could sense the fear between them without either of them fully saying it out loud. Claire has spent years trying to outrun history, but now she's standing face to face with the possibility that some events simply cannot be changed. And if Jaime truly is destined to die in battle, then the finale may force Claire into the most heartbreaking situation of her entire life.